I'm Jenny, and welcome back to my channel. And welcome back to part 2 of my haunted house, our ghost stories. And here with me tonight is my son Chase. He is our youngest child. And where we left off the last time, I was explaining the house to you, where our bedroom was the big bedroom, Andrew had the front bedroom, Stephanie had the bedroom off the end of the hallway, and Chase and Ryan had the bedroom at the end of the hall on the other side of the house. And last time I was talking about when I would hear the mini explosions in the house, and I'd walk out and the chandeliers would be swinging, the lights, but it was very quiet, and none of you ever came out of your room during any of that. Did you even hear it?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Things all the time.
I wasn't sure if you heard the explosions because we were terrified and jumping out of the bed trying to get out there and see if you guys were okay, and none of you came out. And
we were all too scared to leave our rooms.
their bedroom doors were always shut. None of them ever slept with their doors open.
Mm-mm.
And I guess I never noticed that until we moved out of the house, that your bedroom door was always shut.
Yeah, well, there was a reason for that. That's for sure.
All right. Let's hear your point of view, what you saw in the house, because I know you saw some of the same things, but also some different things than what I did.
Well, do you want me to go sort of in a chromatic order? Kind of
Yeah.
start?
Yeah, start from day one. That's what I did.
So, I didn't get to see the house until the third day that we had it. Because you guys were moving stuff and I stayed at the apartment and didn't even know that much about it. Midnight was already over there, and you guys had mentioned that he was acting weird in the house before I even went there.
That's why we took him back.
First weird thing, but the first day I went into the house with my box from my bedroom, I don't know how I got it, but I had one of those phones that you plug into the wall, and I was going to have one for my bedroom because it had the phone jack. And I pulled it out of the box and I set it on my dresser, and as I was walking away from it, it rang, and I thought about it, and was wondering, wow, I didn't know we had set up the phone service already. I picked it up and there was nothing, no noise, and then I realized the phone wasn't even plugged in. There was no power cord, and it wasn't plugged into the audio or the landline yet, and it freaked me out. I ran downstairs and told you guys, and
I heard the phone ring. I thought you were digging it out of the box because I could hear you up there when I heard the phone ring, and then I heard you shuffling around. I thought you were taking the phone out of the box, and then you came running down the stairs.
I just pulled it out of the box and set it down, and it rang. And after that, nothing happened for quite a long while. There were eerie feelings about the house, maybe some small strange noises. It didn't start with a bang, small things at first. And then, stuff that you could write off and feel like, maybe I'm just being paranoid because I was a kid, and sometimes you see things, But as time went on, I started to believe that what I was seeing was real because it was things that I couldn't deny. One day, my siblings came home, Ryan and Steph, and you were on the couch. And I was walking with them. I was kind of annoying to them, always following them around when they got home.
On the couch in the front living room or in the
You were in the
dining?
front living room,
Okay.
not the one by the kitchen.
Okay.
So they were walking out back, probably to, hang out back there, and as soon as they got about to the sliding glass door, I was behind them, and from about 12 feet away, a loaf of bread that was sitting on the counter flew at my head. And both of them looked at me, astonished, and I just ran and jumped right into your lap.
It scared you.
Yeah, I jumped right into your lap, and I was freaked out. And then another time, Ryan was near the kitchen. He wasn't in the kitchen, but he says he saw it. I walked past the refrigerator and it started shooting ice at me. And I tried to write it off and think like maybe it was just in there and it fell at the right time. But they kind of fell out and toward me and it shot out at me. The ice thing, you know, I told myself I was just being crazy. The loaf of bread, I have no clue how that flew 12 feet across the room and right at my head.
So the refrigerator was on the far side of the wall right next to the door that went into the garage. And then there was the counter next to it, and we used to keep the bread
island.
On that counter. And then the island was in the middle, so that bread would have launched itself completely across the room over the island
and at me
and toward the sliding glass door.
And yeah, so it went far. There was no way to explain it. And then after being there a while, some weird things started happening. The dogs would act really weird, and the noises started happening. And for me, I thought it was nothing. So my bedroom was above the garage, and I heard it open and close all the time. And I thought it was my siblings sneaking out or whatever. But eventually, as time went on, some nights it would be every hour. I'd hear it all night, and it definitely wasn't there because I would get excited. You know, maybe they're home. I'd run downstairs. Nobody's there. You know, and I just kept hearing the garage. And then after that started the loud banging noises, like a bowling ball was going down the stairs. So it sounded like somebody would be walking in a little hall strip, and then we had a flight of stairs, and that was right behind my bedroom closet. Would hit each stair and go all the way down.
I didn't get that.
Well, my watch is listening.
Oh, great. That's not scary. And that happened all the time. And I didn't hear anything in my parents' bedroom except for when I was downstairs underneath their bedroom. It would sound like people were, like somebody was always in there walking around, opening drawers. You can hear it clearly if you're quiet.
That's where I would hear the bowling. Sorry, my camera keeps stopping and it was dying, so I had to plug it in.
Anyway, we were at the point where I mentioned that things started to get worse, where the noises would get louder, and it sounded like a bowling ball would come down the stairs, and I could hear it from my bedroom, which was right by the staircase. And the noises became more frequent. You know, we decided after looking out of our bedroom doors and seeing nothing too many times, we decided not to come out of our bedrooms. But for the longest time, it was just noises and things would move, but it wasn't really that scary at first. And then as time went on and it was towards the last little while we were living there, bad things started to happen.
Tell them about you trying to have friends spend the night.
I tried to have my friend David spend the night, and it was close to Halloween. We went trick-or-treating. He came back with me, and he was going to stay like 2 nights or something. And I told him the dogs act weird because we were up in my room and eating candy, of course. We heard the dogs wailing and crying like they were being beaten or something. And
by this time we had our black lab and we had Spike and Cookie.
They were little
babies.
puppies. And he was kind of a pistol. He hot-headed. He jumped up. Someone's in your house. We should go look. I'll take him on. And I'm okay. So I let him.
Here you guys were how old? 11, 12, maybe.
12 or 13, yeah. And so I let him go downstairs before me. And sure enough, as soon as we got to the bottom of the flight of stairs, where it opens up and you can see that first living room, to the corner, all the dogs were backed up and kept pushing themselves into the wall, screaming. And the little puppies were under Midnight's arms. And they were wailing. And he was frozen stiff, David. And I asked him, what's wrong? You know, do you see anything? And he was stiff for the longest time. And then he said, you know, what the F is that? And he pointed, and there was a figure sitting on the couch, a very big one, kind of tall and slender. And it stood up really fast, and the couch got scooted back, you know, like its knees pushed back the couch when it stood. And when I looked back, David was gone.
And I didn't even know that.
Yeah, David was gone, and the figure was gone when I looked back. And I was so sick of being pushed around and put into fear by these things. I ran over to Midnight, I grabbed him, and I dragged him by his collar up the stairs, and the puppies followed. And something kept grabbing my ankles. And I screamed and hollered, and I thought maybe it was going to hurt me or something. But I got to the top of the stairs, I got the dogs in my room, and I shut the door, and David was in there, and he wanted to leave, but he didn't have the confidence to leave the room anymore. So we spent the rest of the night there listening to all the weird sounds, and Midnight was fine once he was in my room. And I often had him sleep in there with me because I was scared, he was scared. So
When I'd go to wake you up for school, he would be in bed with you literally,
Yeah.
and your head would be on him, and his legs are wrapped around you.
yep, we slept together and
For his safety.
yeah. And that was the first time something had like touched me. And then from that point on, I think because I feared it, doing that, I had this eerie feeling like anytime it was late or I was home alone, I didn't want to go up the stairs or down the stairs because I was afraid something was going to happen to me. Until one night it did. I don't remember what night it was, but I don't think anyone was home, or at least I didn't think anyone was home. And I just knew in my mind, I don't know how, I knew today was going to be the day. I just had this heavy feeling of fear. But I had to go up to my room, and it wasn't nighttime, it was kind of just later in the day, and I don't think anyone was home, but I tried to leap up the stairs and skip steps on my way, and I felt something brush my back until I got to the very top step, and something grabbed me and pulled me down the stairs. And it pulled me about halfway down the stairs, and it felt like a hand, and when I looked back, there was nothing. And I jumped up, I screamed, and I ran up the stairs and got in my room, and I heard scratching in my closet from the wall in the stair area, because that wall leads to my closet, and I heard it for a little while.
I remember you telling me about the scratching, but I don't remember you telling me that you got pulled down the stairs.
Yep, I got pulled down the stairs. And yeah, it did weird things. It made us all paranoid, angry, lash out at each other. Ryan hurt me. And he got angry and hurt me out of nowhere one day. And I think it was because he was affected. He didn't seem himself. You know, it was one of those times where we were like play fighting, but it turned into something more real, you know? Mm-hmm. And, but he snapped out of it and apologized and all that, but so that happened, and I just saw small things throughout the time of living there and had weird feelings and very scary dreams that I wouldn't really even bother telling you. I don't think anyone would believe it anyway. But the last thing that really was probably the scariest thing that ever happened to me in my life, in that house especially, I think it must have been the last week we were living there. My room was always kind of cluttered. I was not a very clean kid. And I kind of liked it that way because when I was in my room and it's dark, you can kind of tell yourself that you're just seeing shapes from your own stuff in your room. But when the room was clear and it was just my mattress in there and the dresser, there was no more imagination to blame.
That's when we were moving out. Yeah.
And the room was clear. And midnight wasn't in bed with me that night.
That was our very last night in the house.
I just had something, the most terrifying thing ever happened to me. I woke up in the middle of the night. It must have been 2 or 3 in the morning. And I heard Midnight push my door open. At least it sounded like the door. And he came up to my bedside like he usually does. He just stared. And it was too dark for me to really see him. But he was a black lab. So I put my hand on his head. And it wasn't the shape of a dog's head. It was a human shaped head. And I lost my breath. I tried to scream and I couldn't. And it looked at me and it had blood red eyes. And I pulled my hand away and then I found myself held down to my bed. I got the covers up to maybe my shoulders and it ran into the closet on all fours. And I was sick with fear and frozen. Must have been hours until the sunlight hit my face through my window. And then I was finally able to get out of bed. And I think, that was the last time I had ever stayed a night in that
That
house.
was the last night, literally.
But yeah, I think that's the big things that happened to me.
It was very scary.
Yes, it was.
Those were a couple of things I did not know.
And we had dreams that kind of linked up. If you remember, something came to me in my sleep, in my dream, and it took me somewhere and showed me some terrifying things. And it's like not a dream, it was talking to me. And I had a feeling like I couldn't leave. But I did wake up, and later that day you said you had a nightmare that something took me away, and it told you that it wouldn't give me back or something. And I told you that I had a dream that I was gone.
That's right. When we were looking to move, we had only looked at 2 houses. The first house we looked at was only a couple blocks from where we were. And that house, it was a kind of a deal. It was pretty much, it needed to be gutted. It was awful. Some of the walls were falling down. Kids were breaking in there because it had been abandoned. But the owner was looking for somebody to fix it up as well as rent it. So they were willing to give us really cheap rent if we agreed to fix up the house. So we had talked to the owner, and then we went to look at the house. Well, the house was a wreck. I mean, it was more work than I was willing to take on. And I got a weird feeling in that house too. It was just a weird all around. We did a quick walk through and I was like, nope, this isn't for us, and we left. And that was only, maybe it was the same day or the day before we went to look at the other house. either way, when we decided to move and we rented it, we were gone within that about a week. I mean, it really was fast when we'd made up our mind to move. And that's the night that I had that dream. In that dream, I had a dream that something took Chase and a baby. It was a male baby. It was somebody's baby. I don't know whose baby. But in this dream, somebody had taken my baby and somebody else's baby into another dimension. And in my dream, I was not going to let it happen. And I was willing to follow him and bring my baby back. And I literally, in my dream, I knew exactly what I had to do, and I had to go and gather supplies. And I literally dove headfirst through a mirror into another portal to get my child back. It was a really long dream, and it was really scary. And in my dream, I pulled him out. I came back with him. And this baby. I brought this baby back too. I don't even know who this baby was. But I did. And it was a very upsetting dream. It was very disturbing. I still remember each part of that dream now, and that was over 10 years ago. So that's strange.
Yeah. I don't know if we can get Ryan our stuff to...
Ryan has agreed to tell his part of the story tomorrow night. So I will put Ryan's up the week after this. You'll see it. And then Stephanie probably will not tell hers. Stephanie is still scared. Every little thing scares her. She isn't big on scary movies. Everything bothers her. I mean, she's
she's afraid it'll come back if she talks about it.
She's the one that got attacked the most.
Physically, yeah.
Yeah.
She's scratches on her. Locked in her bedroom.
So with Stephanie, it wasn't long after living in the house. We didn't even have the little dogs yet. It was only maybe a month after living in the house. I had come upstairs and Stephanie wanted to come out of her room. I don't remember if I was calling her to come out of her room, but she tried to turn her doorknob and she got locked in her room. And literally, she could not open this doorknob. I couldn't open it from the outside. It didn't feel locked. It felt jammed. And even though I still at this point, we were only a month in, I thought, okay, strange things are happening. Something's going on around here, but I didn't realize, that it was going to constantly attack her. But at this point, I was nervous, but I ran downstairs and I got a screwdriver and Robert wasn't home, and I ran upstairs and as fast as I could, because I could hear the panic in her voice. She was starting to panic that she was locked in there and she was scared. I took all the screws out of the doorknob. I completely took the doorknob off by myself, and I bashed through that door.
I think it gave her trouble another time too. And
it did.
We eventually just took the door off.
So, we didn't take the door off. So what happened was we moved her rooms. We took her out of that room. By this point, my stepson had moved out because he was really naughty and couldn't get along with anybody, and that's another part of the story I'm going to tell you today. But he had moved out, so we took Stephanie out of that room and we put her in the front bedroom. So our bedroom is here, her bedroom is here, the balcony to look over is here. And we put her in this small room, which was probably the biggest mistake because there was more activity in that room than anywhere. Yeah. And then Ryan moved from Chase's room down the hall to this room. And then Stephanie, being in this room, got locked in this room again. Same doggone thing happened to her. It was like the door was jammed. And this time she really panicked, and I panicked as well. I, again, was home by myself. Her and I had again take the door handle off. But this time it took longer, and I couldn't find the tools to get it off. And I was starting to panic and cry and get upset because I couldn't get her out. And I literally was, at this point, screeching and trying to get her out of this room. I finally did get her out. And I was so upset by this that I took the doorknob off her bedroom door. And from then on, she did not have a doorknob on her bedroom door that was open, so that the door couldn't get locked on her again. And that room was always ice cold. When you were standing looking over into the living room and that bedroom door was shut, you could feel that icy, weird feeling drift from underneath her door over your toes. It's Arizona, we never wear socks, right? We always have flip-flops on. But I would be standing there and I could just feel it creep over my toes.
What was weird is when it was Andrew's room, it was always hot. Every time I go in there, it was warm when he was there, and then when she got in the room, it seemed like it was never.
It was only
cold.
hot when he was in the room because the room was so cold. In the summertime, we'd have the air conditioning on, and we'd go and find Andrew with his bedroom window wide open, and then he'd get in trouble, and we'd say, "What? You know, we're paying for this air conditioning. It's expensive to run an air conditioner in Arizona." And he would say, "Well, I'm not paying for it," and he says, "It's just too cold in here." So he would have his bedroom window wide open. He would leave it open all the time because that room was so cold. So, 118 here in Phoenix, he's got his bedroom window open because he's too cold.
Yeah.
Here's another tidbit about Stephanie. We'll continue on with Stephanie's story for right now so we don't get too mixed up. Stephanie at this point was 17, almost 18, and she was getting ready to graduate high school at this point. And she was gone all the time, so she was afraid of the house, so she was gone a lot. So she may have more stories that she doesn't tell me that I don't know about, but she was afraid of the house, so she just wasn't home a lot, and she was older. Mm-hmm. So, but there was a point where every day, or it was almost the time we were getting ready, she was getting ready to graduate. It was right before she moved out, and this is what pushed her over the edge to move out of the house. I'd go to wake her up for school in the morning. And she'd be laying down facing the wall in her bed, and I go to say, hey, it's time to get up. Turn her over, and one day her arm was her left arm because she was laying on her left side. She had, like somebody had taken their hand this way in a big, huge, bruised handprint. When I saw it, I was so freaked out. I was so upset. I thought she had gotten in a fight. It looked like a big man handprint. I thought somebody had grabbed a hold of her. I was so upset. I was questioning her. Here I'm ready to go to the police thinking somebody had gotten a hold of her. And she's like, "I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't have anything on my arm." Until she went in the bathroom and realized she had this big handprint. She hadn't gotten in a fight. Nothing had happened where she remembers anybody grabbing her arm. Definitely she would have let me know if a man had grabbed her arm. She was a 17-year-old girl. But she was just as upset and freaked out about this big bruised handprint on her arm. Then, continually, I'd wake her up and there would be scratches on her, gouges. One day I went in to wake her up and she had her ankle, one of her ankles. I go to wake her up and I'm like, "Oh my God, what did you do to your ankle?" All the way around her ankle was one cut that looked like, it was perfectly round, like somebody had taken something sharp but just scratched her all the way around and just bled just a little bit. But she didn't remember that happening either. That had happened sometime in the night. This girl would wake up every night cut and bruised every night at this point. Also, she had a friend that spent the night. The friend woke up in the morning and couldn't wait to get out of the house because she had a dream and she was talking in her sleep and my daughter couldn't even wake her up. She said her eyes were wide open and she just kept talking, and she thought that there were a bunch of dead girls all over the house. She said later on when she explained it to me, and this was after we moved here, the friend never explained anything to me until we moved to this house, and actually nobody did because everybody was afraid to talk about anything in that house. Yeah. But she said literally she felt like she was half asleep but half awake, and when she looked up she thought there were dead girls everywhere. She said even, in her mind, she was downstairs in the living room and she was looking up and there was dead girl laying on the ledge and a dead girl laying where the fireplace is, and she said there were dead girls everywhere, and she was panicking, and I guess that's what she was saying in her sleep, but her eyes were wide open was something about the dead girls. So I don't think she spent the night again after that, and not in that house. And then Stephanie moved out after that happened. I'm trying to think what else happened. I don't know, because that's what I'm trying to recount after we moved here, from her friend telling me that and her telling me her experiences, other than me waking her up and seeing the cuts and trying to get her out of the room every time she got locked in. But my mom came to visit, and she lives in Michigan. And when she came to visit, Stephanie was gone, so we put her in that bedroom. And my mom says, hey, the next morning, my mom says, hey, were the puppies up here? And I said, no, they're in their crates downstairs. We crate trained them, so we were putting them in their crate at night. And she said, that's what I thought, because when I woke up, they were in their crate. And I said, well, what's going on? And she said, well, I heard the dogs playing with squeaky toys and a bunch of shuffling and bumping up against my bed and everything, bumping under the bed, and like there was little puppies playing around the whole bedroom. So she said that she had heard, sounded like puppies playing, but when she woke up and flipped the light on, there was nothing there, and that scared my mom. And I had mentioned to her that weird things were happening, but I hadn't gone into great detail with her yet about anything that was going on. So then this was right when we got the puppies, so this would have been Christmas of 2007, and we moved in this house in July of 2007.
What happened with Ryan and Andrew getting in trouble?
No, so we'll talk about that now. They all went to the same high school, and Ryan is a year older than Andrew. Andrew is my stepson, and Andrew and Ryan got into it, and I guess when they were at school, Andrew hit Ryan, and when Ryan came home, I was so mad. And at this point, Andrew was really giving us a hard time, and he had already gotten busted twice. Once for selling drugs, once for stealing. He just was getting into a lot of trouble. And I was pretty much done at this point, and I couldn't handle him living with us anymore. And so anyway, he hit Ryan at school. Ryan came home, and he had this huge bump on his face, and a black eye. And I was so mad, I called the police. So police came over to take the report, and at this point, this was early on in the so we moved in July. This would have only been a couple months later. It didn't take long for Andrew to get in constant trouble. He was Robert was a single dad, so Andrew had his dad all to himself and did not take well to all of a sudden being in a huge family. So it was only about September that this happened, and so we didn't have the little dogs yet. We just had Midnight Paul, the black lab. So they'd gotten into the fight. Ryan comes home. He's got this black eye, huge bump on his face, little cut. I was really mad, and this was the last straw, so I called the police. Police came over to take the police report, and we're standing in the living room, and it's probably 2:30ish, but we're standing in, it was actually the kind of the dining area where we had the table in the kitchen, so in between the small living room and the back living room and the kitchen, and the police are taking the report and asking us questions. All of a sudden, you hear the bowling ball drop and sound like it's rolling, and the police officer looks at me and says, "Ma'am, who else is in the house?" And I'm like, I look at Ryan and I say, "Nobody." The dog's laying on his love seat as usual, and then we're continuing on with the report, and the police officer looks at me like he doesn't believe me anyway, and then the stomping starts. And so they're stomping around upstairs, and the police officer looks at me again and says, "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time, who else is in the house?" And I just look at him and shake my head, and I'm like, "Nobody." I mean, should I have said, "You know what? It's a ghost. You should go see." And I look back, I want to say that, but it was already a very serious situation, and I was really upset about Ryan getting hit, so I didn't, I was being honest. There was nobody else in the house. It was Ryan and I and the dog. There was a lot of whispering, chatter. No matter what time of day, when you were in this house, you could feel something looking at you. You constantly were looking over your shoulder, thinking that somebody else was here.
Downstairs, yeah.
Our sliding glass door shattered several times. It just shattered. The last time it shattered was because you were tossing a little stone out, but literally this little stone hit the very edge. It was a pebble, and it shattered this door. This door would not stop shattering. I don't know. I mean, that could be due to faulty glass every time we replaced it. I don't know, but it shattered a lot. The lab was scared constantly, and we also had to replace the screen in the sliding glass door. The screen part, if we had the door, the glass door open, Midnight would come barreling through that screen or out it to get out of the house. We replaced that thing all the time.
Yeah, and because of it, Midnight's paranoia, he caused Ryan to break the glass door the first time. Because the phone was ringing and Ryan ran for the phone, which was right by the glass door in the kitchen. And Midnight chased after him and followed him, and then cut him off and tripped Ryan, and he fell through the glass door. And
That's
Ryan
crazy.
went through the glass door, which is terrifying because he could have really gotten hurt. But luckily, he was okay.
Yeah.
But Midnight was, always following us because he didn't want to be alone.
He was terrified of this place. I felt so bad.
Which is weird because when we moved here, he was totally cool with
Act like a normal dog.
sitting wherever he wanted and
Yep.
lazing about.
Yep.
Didn't really follow us very much.
Nope, he never cried when we lived here. He never whined or howled
Yeah.
like he did there. He also would start frothing at the mouth and salivating and just howling and fall down. And I mean, it was like, I guess if you got a dog drunk, that's how he acted. It was so weird at that other house. Like I said, we were only there 2 years, and so 2 years of his life he had to deal with. I don't even know what he saw.
Who knows?
But he felt so bad for him. But the thing is that with the constant noise and the chatter and the explosions, it's enough to drive somebody mad. I mean,
Our whole family.
and if I was home by myself, especially at night, if Robert had to work at night when the kids were always trying to be gone, I mean, they want to spend the night with their friends all the time. I literally call Robert all the time, when are you going to be home? When are you going to be home? And I would grab my purse and my keys and I would sit next to the front door in case I had to take off in a run. I was scared to death that I was going to get locked in that house. I always had these visions of I'm going to be locked in, like Stephanie was locked in her room. I'm going to get locked in this house.
Oh,
I was always scared of that.
Did you mention the story about when you were home alone taking a nap? That story you told me? Where it got in.
That is the very last straw, and it wasn't a nap. I'm going to get to that, but I'm going to talk about that last.
Okay.
Because that was what was my final push. My sister came to visit. She came to visit November of 2008. And it was right after Robert and I had gotten married. We got married October 2008. And my sister, I flew my sister here for my birthday. And when she was here, we ended up going to Vegas to hang out and have a sister's weekend. And so she was here only 5 days, I want to say. So we spent 3 of those in Vegas. We didn't spend a lot of time at the house. So she didn't really notice anything, and we didn't talk about it much. We were in Vegas having a good time, and when we got home, and it was the night before, the morning she was to leave to go home to Michigan. So nothing had happened to her up until this point, but she didn't spend a lot of time in the house either. We were really busy. And when we were back here in the valley, I was taking her around looking at things and shopping, and we were hanging out. And when she was home, I remember one night I went to bed early, but she was with you guys, and Robert stayed up, and you guys were all hanging out in the backyard.
Yeah.
So, but the morning she was to leave, it was an early flight, but she woke me up at like, it must have been 5:30 in the morning. She woke me up. She came into my bedroom and shook me and said, hey, were you just in my bedroom? And I said, no. And she was sleeping in what was Ryan's room right where the top of the stairs come up off to the side, and Chase's bedroom was at the end.
Yeah, Ryan slept in my room with me while she was there.
Yep. So she slept in Ryan's bedroom. And the last night she set the alarm clock, Ryan's alarm clock, because she wanted to get up at 4:30. So it must have been 5 when she woke me up. So the alarm was supposed to go off at 4:30. Well, the alarm never went off. So at 4:30, her alarm never went off, but it was weird because something did wake her up. Something whispered in her ear, wake up. And she thought it was me. And when she opened her eyes and I wasn't there, she freaked. And she, looked at the alarm clock. It was just a couple minutes after 4:30. So the alarm for some reason wasn't on. After she turned it on, purposely set it so she'd wake up, something had already turned it off and told her to wake up. And that's when she came in my room and asked if I was just in there, and I said no, and she said I didn't think so. So she went downstairs. So my sister is a cigarette smoker, so she was very nervous. So she was in the backyard smoking a bunch of cigarettes. And when I came down, I got up and started getting ready so I could take her to the airport. When I went downstairs, she said, were you just down here? And I said, no. And she said, well, then your dishes are doing themselves. Let's go. Let's leave. I want to go to the airport now. So on the way to the airport, she told me about something whispering in her ear, wake up. And it was that really raspy, didn't sound human wake up, I guess. I don't know, but it scared her so bad. And she left that day. When I got home from the airport, it was still pretty early. It was probably 6 o'clock in the morning. And it was dark still. And I thought, well, I don't want to wake anybody up, but I don't want to go to sleep either. I just was going to read a book. So I turned on a light downstairs and I picked up my book to read it. And all of a sudden, I look over at the computer and the mouse is moving. And the mouse is moving and clicking on programs and opening programs up on the computer. I did not stop to see what it was opening up. I saw solitaire pop up and then a couple other things, and I took off up the stairs and jumped on top of Robert and woke him up. That freaked me out because you just all of a sudden got that opening up computer programs isn't threatening, but it was freaky and the feeling in the room. So I took off running up the stairs and woke Robert up. There's probably a lot more, but
yeah,
it's the smaller things that you forget, the constant goings on, the constant knocking in the wall.
Paranoia.
Yeah, I will tell you, Halloween night, the year Robert and I got married, 2008, Halloween night, the kids were gone. Nobody wanted to be in the house Halloween night. They spent the night at a friend's house that Halloween night.
Yeah,
and we were exhausted because our wedding was just a few days before Halloween. And we were exhausted because I had done everything myself. I catered it. We were just watching TV. We didn't even have trick-or-treaters. No trick-or-treaters ever came to that house. We bought candy. Not one trick-or-treater ever came to that house. And this house, I mean, we go through hundreds of dollars of candy. We get so many trick-or-treaters, but not one there. So I left the candy in the bowl and I said, I am exhausted. I just want to go to sleep. And he said, I agree with me too. So we shut off all the lights, went upstairs to go to sleep, and we're in bed, and I don't even think we turned the TV on. We were that tired. And I was laying on my left side, and he was on his left side, and he had his arm over me, and all of a sudden, knocking. And the knocking was in the bathroom, our master bathroom in the bedroom. And it started from the floor and went all the way up to the ceiling. Now, these were super tall ceilings. So, and the knocking would have been where my shower was. So how could you knock on the wall from inside the bathroom if the shower's there? It wasn't a tile shower. That bathtub was that, what do you call it, that fiberglass bathtub shower stuff. But the knocking started at the bottom and it went knock, 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 knock. I mean, all the way up to the ceiling. And I nudged him and I said, do you hear that? And he said, of course I hear that. And he says, why don't you go check it out? And I said, I probably should. And I went to throw the blankets back, and all of a sudden he grabs the blankets and throws them back over me and holds me down and says, don't do it. It's the ghost. I know what's going on. And that didn't scare me as much because by this time I'm used to it, and I was exhausted. And this house didn't let you sleep. The knocking in the walls, the dropping that sounded like bowling, whether it's in my bedroom or down the stairs, you couldn't sleep. It was so loud. And the worst loud and the worst activity, with things flying and crashing and just disturbances were probably from 3 o'clock in the morning to 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. That was the worst time. Literally, the loudness. It was so loud. There was never one peaceful, quiet night. And if you could call anything a peaceful, quiet night, it was probably the first couple nights we lived there. I will say also, this house is consistently empty. Nobody ever stays longer than a year. How we lasted 2 years in that house, I don't know. It was ridiculous.
We've seen it go up for sale. I think
Several times.
it took almost a year for somebody to move in after we left, right?
Yeah,
And
it took a couple
then
years.
They moved out in less than a year,
Yeah.
and then it was vacant for a while again.
And we made friends with the neighbor. His house was directly to the south of us. But this was such a small neighborhood. It was like 2 houses here, 2 houses here, then the roads turned, and then 2 houses, 2 houses. I mean, just small little blocks within these neighborhoods. Arizona, Phoenix particularly is kind of set up that way. All of our neighborhoods have walls around them, and there's usually an entrance to come in and then your little side roads through. So it's a small neighborhood like that. Anyway, we've been friends with him. We've stayed friends with him. We're still friends with him. He just sold his house there, but that house was right next to him, and he says nobody could ever stay there. And he never personally experienced any weird things in his house, but he says no one stays there. I don't know. I think I know why nobody stays there. Well, we've taken up a lot of your time, and I'm going to try to pull myself together and tell you the rest of the story soon. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate your support. And if you like the video, if you're interested in more goings on, let me know. If you have any questions, drop me a comment. I'm happy to answer anything. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Doesn't that dredge up weird memories for you?
Yeah.
It does me. And then when I play it back and watch it, I scare myself.
Yeah.
I got a little freaked out watching my first video, and I'm, watching it. Oh my God. You forget how many things happened.
Yeah, I tried to forget a lot of it.
It was definitely an experience that I don't ever want to repeat again.
I think this year I finally felt a little better about talking about it. The
Well,
fear isn't as fresh, but it's definitely...
It's over 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
It's 10 years in July 1st.
Yeah.
Exactly 10 years, July 1st.
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah.
We moved in here. Yeah, that's insane.